Frustration at City Council tonight during a hearing on the response to the mass shooting at Brooklyn homes.
I just pulled up Brooklyn Day on my Instagram right now, and you're telling me that we have an entire unit associated with this, and they didn't pick that up?
What we learned from the Baltimore Police Department and Safe Streets and the questions left unanswered. Top prosecutors across the state say their hands are tied with recent juvenile justice laws.
That's certainly led to some problems.
What the mayor says needs to change to make sure young criminals are held accountable. A love triangle turns deadly, according to police. What charging documents reveal about the case of a woman found dead in her car.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
My son, Ivan Williams, was murdered at the 800 block of Gretna Court on January the 23rd of this year. And if Baltimore City Police and the Housing Authority would have had a better response to his murder and would have been policing that community like they should, this would not have happened. This is an egregious act.
A grieving mother shares her story during tonight's City Council hearing on the mass shooting response. She says that incident could have been avoided if police had taken her son's murder back in January more seriously. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. The hearing leaving more questions than answers, especially from the police department and the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement, leaving even council members unsatisfied.
Although I appreciate the honesty and straightforwardness that we've gotten in some instances, we haven't gotten very many answers.
Well, tonight, Fox 45 News is holding city leaders accountable. We have team coverage as Jeff Abel looks into why police say they missed key indicators before the shooting happened and where communication broke down. But we begin with Mackenzie Frost and an apparent lack of transparency from Monzi about what Safe Streets workers were doing in Brooklyn on the night leading up to the shooting.
Starting off the hearing,
our office is very serious about the ways that we'll be prioritizing healing.
The mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement not acknowledging 4 Safe Streets workers were at the block party from 9 o'clock Saturday night until around 11:30 until they were asked.
The police department was very transparent about what they knew when they knew it, but I noticed on the Monsi slides you started from the next morning.
And the cracks in Monzi's system implementing Safe Streets start showing.
So can you walk us through what Monsi knew when they knew it?
Councilman Isaac Yitzi-Schleifer demanding to know if the now 5 mediations done by the Safe Streets workers involved guns.
We're here to have a transparent conversation about the most horrific event that I know of that ever took place in the city of Baltimore.
I 100%
and so,
agree.
In order to understand what went wrong and how we can assure that never happens again, these basic questions need to be answered. And so it's more important to know what these 5 conflicts were, okay? Well, what these 5 conflicts were in a 2-hour window,
right,
leading up to right before the shooting, whether or not there was weapons involved.
They have been answered, and they have been answered directly to Monsi.
So why wouldn't that be answered to the public? What is the problem?
I would have to defer, again, respectfully, to Monsi as to whether or not they want to share what's been shared with them.
I don't have an itemized breakdown of all 5 of the conflicts with specifics, but I can share the nature of those. I'm not aware of weapons being involved in any of the conflicts that were mediated in that 5.
If you want to answer the questions and you want to get into detail, let's do this.
And later, it's revealed those mediations,
they weren't all documented that night.
What those mediations were are still unclear because the details have not been reviewed.
But our preliminary assessment is that these were not directly connected to the event.
I'm not sure how that assumption is being made. So either they were reviewed or they weren't reviewed. My mind's boggled as to how it was not completely, fully reviewed.
Hours after the questioning began, several council members demanding to know how the city's flagship violence prevention program did not know Safe Streets workers were at the Brooklyn Day event.
Do we have a protocol for that? What should happen?
We are able to provide you all of the protocols as it relates to Safe Streets workers.
Ultimately, Monzi never admitting any fault or taking accountability, instead touting the resources provided in the Brooklyn community now after the triggers were pulled.
And Mackenzie Frost joins us now live. Mackenzie, lots of talk tonight about Safe Streets workers performing mediations. Is there a clear idea of what that means for them?
No. Simply put, Mary, no. And this is a question that you know that we have been asking for nearly 2 years as we continue to investigate Safe Streets. What constitutes or defines a mediation? We learned a little bit more tonight about how those mediations are inputted into a software system, but that information we learned is not shared with anybody else. And as we learned tonight, some members within the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement haven't really gone through all of those mediations that have been inputted from this mass shooting. Now, the council members really trying to drill down as to how a mediation is defined, how it's inputted, and how the agency really keeps track of those mediations once they're completed. And how does the Safe Streets workers really know when an argument or a beef between people is really over? These are lingering questions that we still have tonight after an hours-long hearing going back and forth between the council members and this public safety agency. And you know, Mary, this hearing really wrapped up within the hour, and after we had the opportunity to question some of the council members, not just about their feelings about this evening, but really how they feel about the way Monzi is running the Safe Streets program. And we got some pretty eye-opening statements. I can't lie about the responses from some of the council members. We'll have those full responses coming up at 10:30. But for now, we're live outside City Hall. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
All right, Mackenzie, thank you. We'll see you back here at 10:30.
The Guardian Angels is critical of Safe Streets' response to the mass shooting. The group says there's no excuse for the lack of communication between Safe Streets workers and the Baltimore Police Department. The group's leader says the city should give more resources to other groups.
When are we going to start including these organizations also? Like I said, we've been doing this for 17 years. There's other groups out there that have been doing it just as long. And we don't get the negative attention. We don't even get the positive attention for what it is we do. One of the things we do know in Guardian Angels is that you can't do anything without the community and with the police department. You can't do anything without them.
Well, you can find more information on the Guardian Angels' criticism of Safe Streets' response to the mass shooting on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Now, Baltimore police also in the spotlight tonight over their response in Brooklyn. Acting Commissioner Richard Worley admitting his office missed some signs in the hours leading up to the shooting. Fox 45's Jeff Abel continues our team coverage tonight. Jeff.
The police commissioner still cannot explain why his agency knew nothing about a block party that drew some 800 people to Brooklyn, a block party that became the largest crime scene this city has ever seen.
Oversight hearing, Brooklyn mass shooting.
At City Hall tonight, council members had far more questions than police had answers.
We're not going to have a lot of the answers within 2 weeks. We do know some things happened, and we have plenty of things to investigate. Interviews, body-worn cameras, text messages, emails that we want to look at.
Council members called this hearing in an attempt to better understand the breakdown that led to the largest mass shooting in this city's history. The gunfire that broke out during a block party at a Brooklyn housing complex killed 2 people and injured 28 others.
We missed a lot of points. We missed a lot of indicators that this was happening.
Council members pressed Police Commissioner Richard Worley about the department's failure to learn about the block party and mobilize its resources.
I find it very hard to believe that there was a large gathering of 800 people and no one called 911 at a particular time leading up to that event.
One at 9:40 said individuals armed with guns and knives.
The police commissioner says the department did receive several 911 calls from the Brooklyn area the night of the party, but officers never requested the need for help.
A party of that magnitude, no matter how many officers were in the Southern District, they could not handle that party alone. So they would have had to reach for extra resources, which we had available throughout the city, that we could have sent there.
Do we know if that happened?
Or as far as we know, no.
The police commissioner says his department is working nonstop to understand what happened that night, but council members seem to be losing patience.
It just seems like time and time again, there were so many different levers for us to trigger and engage a community and do it the right way. That is just very, very troublesome.
Well, the police commissioner vowed to have a final report in 45 days. Meanwhile, one council member is calling for an independent investigation to ensure all questions are answered. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Well, the president of Baltimore City's chapter of the NAACP speaking during public comment tonight, criticizing acting Commissioner Worley. He, along with the NAACP, spoke out about the mayor's appointment of Worley last month, saying he should have opened up a broader search for Harrison's replacement. Tonight, he doubled down on that criticism.
This incident, we told you guys this incident was going to happen when we had our last press conference. This is why you need community engagement on the front end before you bring in a police commissioner. So I hope that every member of this council is taking very seriously your responsibility to vet a police commissioner.
The mass shooting was the first major test for acting Police Commissioner Worley. He took over less than a month before the shooting happened on June 8th after former Commissioner Harrison stepped down. Now, Fox 45 News has been pressing the mayor's office for answers on the abrupt change for weeks. We've been asking for a copy of Harrison's resignation notice. The mayor's office refuses to hand it over, saying it's a personnel matter. We've also asked if Harrison was asked to resign or if he resigned on his own accord, why he resigned just 8 months before his contract ended, and does the public deserve to know the terms of Harrison's resignation? And now we're learning more about that transfer of power. In an interview with another news outlet, Harrison and Scott revealed Worley found out he was chosen as police commissioner less than 12 hours before the announcement was made. And in the wake of the shooting, Fox 45 News asked Mayor Scott whether he still has confidence in Worley to lead the police department.
Has it swayed your confidence in Worley as the next commissioner for Baltimore?
No.
It is important to note Harrison is still on the payroll. It's not clear when confirmation hearings for Worley will begin. There's also questions about Worley's residency. The city charter requires the police commissioner to live in the city and be registered voter in the city. Worley currently lives in Anne Arundel County. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think the public deserves to know more about Harrison's? Did he resign or was he fired? Even though today in the interview he said he resigned. So far, 100% of people say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Fox 45 News demands answers about the mass shooting in Brooklyn homes and accountability. You can follow along and find all of our coverage and reporting online at foxbaltimore.com.
We are following some breaking news. Baltimore City is issuing a voluntary water restriction for the city, Baltimore County, as well as Harford and Howard counties after a fire at a pumping station today. Officials say the fire caused the pumping station to lose power and damaged 2 of the pumps, straining the system. Residents are being asked to cut back on the amount of water they use to avoid putting more stress on the system while repairs are underway. It's important to note that the water is safe, and the request to restrict water use does not include drinking, cooking, or cleaning.
Well, taking a look outside now, it is warm and it is now muggy. 88 degrees. Yes, 88 degrees to the 10 p.m. hour after 96 this afternoon in BWI, 86 at Bel Air, and lots of 80s across the rest of the board. Dundalk also nice and warm there at 87 degrees. We want some rain to cool us down, right? Well, west of Gaithersburg, there is a little bit. I think that some of the clouds are helping us to hold in some of the heat this evening. But those showers, most of the storms with them, then going to our south, but there could be a few showers overnight. When you wake up, they should be gone. 78 and muggy, and then it's hot by tomorrow afternoon. Showers and storms come back in. I'll let you know if there's a severe risk in a couple of minutes.
Jonathan, thanks. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, a Baltimore County woman found dead in a school parking lot, possibly killed at the hands of a jealous ex. Fox 45 News looks into the strange details in Pikesville. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott joining the state's top prosecutors criticizing juvenile justice laws, the changes he wants to see in Annapolis. And at 10:30, our team coverage on the response to Brooklyn's mass shooting continues. Fox 45 News presses city council members on the questions they still have for Monzi after tonight's hearing.
We're following a hearing at City Hall as elected leaders question the police department in Monsey about the deadly mass shooting at Brooklyn Homes. 2 people were killed, 28 others shot as the search for suspects continues.
We know a 17-year-old faces weapons charges stemming from his actions during the block party, but nothing related to the shooting itself.
Now Mayor Brandon Scott is joining the calls for a stronger juvenile crime response at the state level on the heels of this mass shooting.
Fox 45's Maxine Stryker has his response and concerns from top prosecutors across the state who say their hands are tied.
Maryland's top prosecutors are calling for change from the state's General Assembly.
I think without question, over the last several years, the General Assembly has changed a number of the laws that deal with juvenile crime. And I think that's certainly led to some problems.
We reached out to every state's attorney in Maryland with a series of questions, including, do you believe the Maryland General Assembly has made it difficult for your office to hold juveniles accountable? And do you support the Juvenile Justice Reform Act of 2022 and the Child Interrogation Protection Act? Why or why not? Of the 24 states' attorneys, 10 answered our questions, and all of them agreed the General Assembly has made it more difficult to hold juveniles accountable.
They know that, nothing's really going to happen to them if they keep their crime in a certain limit of types of crimes.
What I will tell you is we need to do something fast, quick, in a hurry. Juveniles understand that nothing will happen to them.
Well, that's fine. Under the Juvenile Justice Reform Act passed last year, those 13 and under are limited to charges for crimes of violence, and a juvenile under 10 cannot be charged. The law also calls for 6 months probation for juveniles who commit adult misdemeanors and 1 year probation for juveniles who commit adult felonies.
That may not be enough time to help them with the things that they need.
If a juvenile has an illegal handgun, the longest that they can be on probation is 6 months. 6 months. What services can we give a kid in 6 months?
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger agreeing their hands are tied. Also weighing in Carroll County, State's Attorney Haven Shoemaker telling us he opposed both of those bills, saying in part both the quantity and severity of juvenile crime is escalating, not just in Maryland, but across the country. Juvenile criminal coddling is not the answer. Wycomico County State's Attorney Jamie Dyke says both pieces of legislation inhibit accountability and put our youth at higher risk of being victims of and committing violence. And Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy adding it appears that the emphasis has been on putting more juvenile offenders under the care of DJS, but it hasn't been provided the resources needed, which means juveniles who commit criminal acts are not getting effective services. Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott also weighing in today when we asked if he thought the juvenile justice laws on the books needed to change.
You know that I think there's something need to change. I had a bill in Annapolis this year around home monitoring and the notification around home monitoring. No one, a juvenile or adult, should be able to be outside of where they're supposed to be for 48 hours before any notification happens. And if someone breaks that, then they should be able to be detained by law enforcement. But what I am going to do is go back this session and work with our General Assembly, work with our governor to make sure that we are changing anything that needs to be changed, but my focus is going to be on those that I know are allowing crimes to be committed against those juveniles and by them.
Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Well, several other leaders in Maryland joining the state's attorneys and voicing their complaints about juvenile justice laws across the state. They say the laws leave police and prosecutors' hands tied.
To be honest, I think it's one of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever read, because what it has done is taken the process of holding juveniles accountable away from prosecutors.
Those protections have given way to a protection of some people who have committed very heinous crimes, which, yes, that does hamper what we are doing now.
It's becoming more and more difficult to hold juveniles accountable.
Basically, a lot of things that, unfortunately, young people find themselves getting involved in, police can no longer take action.
Governor Wes Moore tells Fox 45 News that he doesn't plan to call a special session. A spokesperson for the governor responded to our questions, saying in part, while there are no plans for a special session, the Moore-Miller administration is committed to working with the legislature to explore all possible options to curb the gun violence epidemic that has plagued Maryland for far too long.
Well, heat and humidity building. Temperatures up to 96 today and tomorrow. Showers and thunderstorms could be the rule. We start off mainly dry. But as we head into the afternoon, humidity back, and it looks like temperatures in the 80s with, yes, rain and storms. And there is a marginal level 1 and 5 risk of severe weather tomorrow as well. Going to break down where we're going to see it worst and what we could see, and if it lasted to the weekend in my Weather Authority forecast.
Tonight, police say a woman's death may have come at the hands of a jealous ex. Her body found in the parking lot of a Pikesville High School last Friday.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with the details uncovered in charging documents. Keith?
Well, Kai and Mary, it's all here in the charging documents, including how police say the cell phone that they say that the suspect took from his victim helped track his movements, which helped lead to an arrest and what some neighbors are calling a shocking murder. It's an act of violence that disturbs the peace of Emile Juvenile.
But I mean, she lost her life in a violent way, and it's like one street away.
Dead is 45-year-old Lakeisha Wheeler. Police found her shot to death inside a car on the parking lot of Pikesville High School in Baltimore County last Friday. A startling discovery near Juman's home.
To lose your life in a violent way, just, in your vehicle, that's like shocking, It's like out of the blue.
Now, news of an arrest and what police believe could be a motive. Police identifying the suspect, 53-year-old Levi Feldman. According to charging documents obtained by FOX45 News, Feldman is the father of Wheeler's 6-year-old son. Investigators say in February, she had filed a protective order against Feldman, an order he violated last month, and an arrest warrant issued. According to police, he had learned Wheeler was in a new relationship and that Feldman became jealous. We're also learning more about what happened the moments before the shooting. According to charging documents, video surveillance from Pikesville High School captures Wheeler parking on the school's parking lot last Thursday, July 6th, just before 8 o'clock that morning. Minutes later, a black male is seen getting out of the front passenger seat of the vehicle and begins to walk along Smith Avenue. Police say earlier that day, Feldman had called Wheeler, told her his car had broken down on Interstate 83 and that he needed the tools out of the car Wheeler was driving. She agreed to help him and left home. Later, at 7:21 that morning, police say she called her son, checked on him, then said she was going to work. That was all on the morning of Thursday, July 6th, hours before her body was found. Police discovered she'd been reported missing during the evening hours of that day. Last seen by her family the day before, Wednesday, July 5th. Now, her murder. The suspect, police say, her child's father.
I hope the kid gets the support and the help they need. You're thinking about your mom, your dad, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, and this is what's going to be always on the kid's mind, right?
Well, I did talk to Lakeisha Wheeler's family today. There are mixed emotions. They're pleased about the arrest, but realize there's a 6-year-old boy who lost his mother, and they say he could lose his father, too. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Well, coming up at 10:30, more testimony in the trial for a man accused of killing his pregnant girlfriend. Why the unborn child's possible name played a key role in the prosecution's case.
And city council members are left with more questions than answers after tonight's hearing on the Brooklyn mass shooting. Why they're frustrated with Monzi's comments at City Hall. We are following three big stories at 10:30. BGE's legal battle over external gas regulators is heating up. How one frustrated resident says the city council can step in to override the company's control.
The state's legislative Black Caucus highlighting the laws passed to help Black Marylanders in this year's legislative session. Why others argue now isn't the time for celebration.
Fox 45's extensive coverage of tonight's city council hearing on the response to Sunday's mass shooting continues. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been at that hearing all night. She pressed council members about what they heard from the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement.
Mackenzie, what did they tell you?
Well, Mary and Kai, we spoke to several council members, and really none of them say that they are satisfied with what they heard tonight. One councilman even saying he believes the funding for Monty should be held until there's more transparency from the agency about how it is spending your tax dollars. Now, I asked these council members, given the fact that we know these Safe Streets workers were at this block party before the shooting took place, they did not alert anyone about this large gathering or the potential for threat or danger later on. We asked them if they believe these Safe Streets workers or Monty bear some responsibility for what happened.
They're the only ones who didn't answer questions tonight. BPD was extremely transparent. They told us every detail, everything that they knew.
We need to know on the council exactly what is going on, where the money's going, who we're employing. And again, at the end of the day, we need to know because the constituents that we represent, they want to know.
How come it took a mass shooting where we saw 30 people shot, 2 dead, for the council to really seem to take an interest in the way Monty is operating in the Safe Streets program?
Well, I wouldn't just point a finger on Monty. I think overall, as I mentioned early on, like the government, I think has failed. Our city is dying.
Should Monty be getting the level of funding that it is?
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a halt.
We are pouring more than $20 million a year into an agency that has grown exponentially that does not have a handle on what is happening.
Now, a lot of the questions that were raised tonight are similar to the questions that we have been asking the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement about Safe Streets for nearly 2 years, trying to get information about how the Safe Streets program operates, who the employees are, how do they do their mediation, and what is a mediation, how is it defined? Those questions were asked tonight, and again, many of these council members leaving without getting those questions answered. We did hear from the chairman, Councilman Mark Conway, say that he does plan to reconvene this hearing in a few weeks so he can continue to demand answers, and will continue to press these leaders to make sure those answers are given. We're live outside City Hall. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Fox 45 News demands answers from city leaders surrounding the mass shooting at Brooklyn Homes. You can find all of our reporting online at foxbaltimore.com.
Well, members of the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus highlighting the progress they made in the last session.
One item missing from tonight's discussion, public safety. Fox 45's Vincent Hill joins us live after sitting in on tonight's meeting. Vincent.
Yeah, Kai and Mary, one resident said it best. What have they done to keep their community safe?
We just want to welcome you to Baltimore.
A meeting of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland.
In the 2023 session, this group came together and worked to identify some of the most pressing issues facing the Black community.
Touting their success of the 2023 legislative session. The one thing not mentioned that residents like Robert Cloud want to know.
What are we going to do about us Black folks in Baltimore taking accountability and responsibility for what's going on here?
What have they done to keep their community safe and tackle juvenile crime? In Baltimore City this year, 11 juveniles shot and killed, and at least 60 shot and injured.
But I think nationwide, we're definitely seeing that issue across the board.
Delegate Marlon Ampry acknowledging the problem of juvenile crime, but placing the blame on the pandemic in the prior administration.
This is not a product of one legislative term. This is a product of 8 years of a governor who refused to work in partnership with Baltimore City.
And not showing much support for tougher laws.
So you're saying tougher laws is not the way? I believe that the word tougher laws is a language I don't like to use.
Fox 45 posed the same question to Senate President Bill Ferguson.
I think there is without a doubt a crisis happening.
He, too, acknowledging the crime crisis, pointing to the availability of guns, especially in teen hands.
It is too easy for juveniles to get access to a firearm, and they're too quick to use it.
But when pressed on tougher laws,
the accountability is questionable.
I think at the end of the day, real accountability is diverting kids from bad behavior.
Last year, the city of Baltimore.
And when it comes to a special session to tackle crime.
Do you think we should wait until next session to start having those conversations? Or should...
Oh, no, we're already in the midst of these conversations. We're looking at the current system. We're looking at ways that we can enhance it.
Ferguson not giving a direct answer. And of course, also in that meeting was Senator Jill Carter. Of course, she's behind the Juvenile Justice Reform Act that many say is not working. For now, we're live in Baltimore. Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Vincent, thank you. Well, Democrats currently have a supermajority at the state level. Maryland Republicans saying they wanted more to be done to curb crime during the legislative session. They called for laws to address repeat violent offenders and juvenile crime, but neither one of those bills even made it to a second committee meeting.
But the fact that we can't even get these bills a vote in the Judicial Proceedings Committee is telling us that people don't want to fix these problems.
Well, Fox 45 News has done extensive coverage on the frustrations following this year's session in Annapolis. Our full reporting available at foxbaltimore.com.
Key developments in the trial of Michael Robertson. He's accused of killing his pregnant girlfriend, Akia Eggleston, and their unborn child in 2017. Robertson's cousin testified and said Robertson planned to name the unborn baby Anubis. Now, prosecutors say that name translates to God of the Dead. Akia's family gave their interpretation of the name.
Do you think he was trying to point a picture to premeditation?
Absolutely. I do agree that the prosecuting attorney was trying to depict a story based on the witnesses today and the name that was chosen.
The state's last witness did not show up. The defense cross-examined 3 of 4 witnesses. Testimony is expected to continue tomorrow.
Well, new developments in the legal saga surrounding BGE's external gas regulators as a candidate for Baltimore City Council is calling for the city to change its right-of-way laws. Fox 45's Amy Simpson takes us through the request and how it relates to BGE's work.
Outside of City Hall today. Thank you for being here. A city council hopeful urging Baltimore's lawmakers to amend the city's right-of-way laws amid BGE's controversial installation of thousands of outside gas regulators.
Demanding that they get informed and written consent by the property owner is a way that we can manage and ensure that BG&E does not get away with what it's been doing.
Claudia Tolles is running to represent Fells Point at City Hall. She says the city has jurisdiction over construction and utility permitting for right-of-way, where sidewalks are being torn up and those gas regulators are being installed. Right now, a court order has the utility work on hold as a class action lawsuit plays out between residents and BGE.
This is an opportunity for the city council to provide that path forward, to hold BGE accountable and to help them understand that it is not okay to bully their way through our neighborhoods.
This candidate also one of the women who made headlines over gas regulators last month.
I was one of the 3 women who was arrested in Federal Hill protecting the rights of neighbors whose gas was being shut off unlawfully by BGE.
There's no trespass.
Where's the trespass?
Our cameras were rolling as the arrests unfolded. Those 3 women spent a night in central booking. Taking her demands a step further today, this candidate urging city leaders to request BGE's internal memos for insight into why the company made the switch from internal to external gas regulators. Also calling on council members to reject political donations from the utility giant.
And I think taking political donations just muddies the waters.
In a statement today, BGE said it's modernizing Baltimore's gas system. The goal of this work is to provide customers with natural gas in the safest and most reliable manner possible. BGE said in part, adding its project is in accordance with applicable laws, regulations, and BGE standards. But for now, this candidate says the fight continues.
This does not stop today. It didn't stop yesterday in the informational hearing. It's not going to stop with the other hearings. But with information comes the responsibility of taking action.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Frustrated city residents spoke to city council members yesterday saying BGE's gas regulators put their safety at risk. They claim BGE is overstepping its role.
People hit regulators with bikes, with scooters, with baseball bats, and even buses have crashed into the fronts of homes. We're just one TikTok video away from a catastrophic trend in Baltimore.
I think BG&E is pushing its weight around, and they're trying to weaken our neighborhoods, annoy our people, and do it all under arguments that don't hold water.
Some residents who spoke last night said they had no choice but to comply with that installation. We also heard from BGE, who says the outdoor installation poses a far smaller risk than indoor installation. But city council members pushed back on that argument.
How do you get from safe inside to safe outside?
So as you said, it is more safe outside.
Why?
Because in the event that a gas leak should occur, it would vent to the outside where it can safely dissipate as opposed to accumulate inside the house.
Well, a hearing before the Maryland Public Service Commission is set for next month.